Yeah.
We don't care about the 10%, that's a given, whether it be 1 million for the hangar or 2 million. 200,000 if it was 2 million, would come out of the Calkins, I call it the Calkins
Yeah.
fund. Very understand. Anyway, we don't care about that part of it, it's the extra amount is the problem.
It's not necessarily a problem from, I shouldn't say it this way, it's not a problem about the money, it's a problem about the process. And we can't, if it was approved for 10%, and they're asking for 10% plus anything more than 10%, it's a process problem that we have to go through the process.
I also say it's a money problem.
Well, right. The money question comes in as part of the process. If the process approved 10%, it's 10%.
Do we have to take it back to the voters or not? That's the question, one of the questions.
Correct.
But we weren't on the board in 19, I wasn't even back, well, I was, but around me in this whole thing. What was discussed, the quotes are 1.25 million right now, that they said those quotes were still valid. How much did the original vote by the electors?
No money. 10%. There was no money involved in that meeting. It was just the 10% as the sponsor fee. The town is the sponsor. So the 10% as a sponsor fee for a list of projects, but there were no dollars associated at that meeting.
Then tell me where, thank you, then tell me where there's been an increase. Because at the airport commission meeting, the last one, we specifically asked the question, and, because there was, just like at this meeting, they were talking about an increase. But the quotes were there, and the question was asked, is the contractor still honoring his quotes? And the response was yes. So where is the increase?
The increase was from the original bids that happened before COVID.
Okay, but if there was no, like, okay, my question is, if the electoral approved $1 million, and now it's $1,250,000, that's an increase.
Right.
But there was no, apparently there were no dollars, so whether COVID caused it to go up or not, it comes back to, I agree with Josh, it's the process. What do we have to get anything? Does anything change that we have to get the electorate to vote?
Not that I can see. I can see, you know, from my point of view, is just, they can go through the way.
If prices went up during COVID, whatever, if the 1.25 quote is still valid, I don't see where there's an issue.
Okay, that isn't the issue. The issue is, I'll back up and tell you that I spoke to, what's his name that came, Sam?
Well, that is the issue.
Yeah, Sam.
Oh, hold on. He told me back in October, November, whatever it was, everything's there, the grants are all gonna be approved, all he's gotta do is take the 10% from the Calkins fund, we'll call it. It's a done deal. We're just waiting for him to come back. He comes here and shows up at the meeting. It's not a done deal. We can still contribute to 10%, but they don't have enough to fund it, and they want 100,000+ more. That's the problem.
Yes.
And what's the
Yeah, I
return
understand
on
what you're
investment?
So on 1.25 million, the 10% is $125,000.
Mm-hmm.
So now they're wanting 150 on top of the 125.
Well, I could be wrong on my numbers a little bit, so
Well, it's
that
at
it
least
probably is
100.
Can we
125.
get the, like you said, have your meeting,
Yeah.
but bring us back actual numbers that we can
I want to
look
see
at and
numbers,
compare.
what it
I
is,
was
what's
gonna
the
say,
return on investment?
I've heard this conversation probably a half dozen
Right.
times, and I've
Show
never
us
seen
numbers.
anybody bring up numbers, and now John's telling us we could be on the hook for another 150.
Yeah, I want to see you.
Okay,
And
I'm
I
gonna
have
get a
never
hold of
seen
Al.
anything
Okay.
in writing as to what's going on.
I'll get a hold of Al. We're gonna have, I'll call him emergency meeting and tell him. That's all we can do
Yeah.
going forward.
Somebody give us the numbers in budget form or whatever.
It really comes down to a simple set of numbers. What's the bid, period? It is what it is. Number two, what is 10% of the town, the sponsor fee, the contribution, regardless of where it all comes from, the sponsor's fee? What is 10% of that? And where is the rest of the funding coming from? Because if it doesn't add up to what that bid total is from whatever state grant, state funding, ARPA funding, all of that, that is the number, that's really the big question.
I'll call him.
And from there, if we gotta have another electors meeting, so be it. We have another electors meeting and everybody states their piece and we move forward. One vote, no vote, whatever it is, but we can't take a vote that happened and say, but it got more expensive. You know, we need to make sure that we're following what it was that was approved, regardless of how it relates.
Well, and here's a question I have. If supposedly all of this was a done deal, right? And now they're coming back to us saying, oh, the funds aren't there, they need more money from us. So if we don't do the project, we owe them money. But if we don't do it because they didn't come up with their share, why would we have to pay more?
That's a good question.
That's a good question, and I think that's partially because the cost of materials went up.
It was
So
rhetorical.
now the total outlay they pay
It's a
out.
question for them to answer. It's
Yeah.
rhetorical. They have to answer that question. If we're not doing it because they don't have the funds they promised us, why would we have to pay more if we decide not to do it?
That's a good question for that. Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. I'll get a hold of Al, special meeting.
Thanks for taking care of that one for me, Frank.
When the representative was here from the Bureau of Aeronautics, he said the contract is still good at the price that was quoted. He said that. Also, he said that you need $100 and some thousand extra that they could get from the Calkins property value. And then, once this is built, that money would come back to the Calkins.
Why are they needing the extra money?
That's what I don't understand, and I did not understand it then
Part of
either.
this question.
Yeah, and he told me they had all the money back in October and November.
But he was also talking about that 100 and some thousand, and yet we cannot collateralize the Calkins property to back up that loan. What's going on with that? Something's wrong.
Okay, I'll
I'll
call
see you
him.
later then, Frank. Keep me posted on that.
Thanks.
Thanks. Take it easy, guys.
Okay, I have this put on here, number 6, discussion of possible action regarding purchase of road signage. Couple simple things, those signs like I had, we'll look at the bill, but the signs I had Ron come out with that day to block the road, the signs cost about $300, the barricade. The signs, the two of them cost about $110, road closed on each side, that's what those cost. I found some signs, and there's more signs next door in the airport garage. I found 4 high water on roadway signs that I put together, which I appreciate you helping me with, Dan, and we went out and put them in. But I did order a few more because we were close to having other areas that we were going to have to barricade or block off because of high water. Now,
Who'd you order it through?
Kelly, he'll do it through Lang probably. That's what he'll do. Now, having said that, let's call it 400 signs. I wanna see what he charges us to bring those out. If he's charging us $400, $500 for him to bring them out and pick them up, which could be,
Talking Ron?
yeah, if he's charging us that, I wanna revisit it and maybe invest in 2 of those signs or something, so that I can just throw in my pickup truck and take them out there if we need a road sign or 2.
And we put money into the budget for emergency management, so we could just take the funds from that, couldn't we?
Or signage, I suppose, I don't know what's left in the sign budget.
Nothing.
Well, there should be, we could have spent 8,000, or,
That's what this is. $5,130.
well, at any rate, we got 4,000 or 5,000 in that, but you're saying we used it up? Well, then maybe we just don't do it this year, but let them know.
But we've got $50-some thousand that we got back for the emergency management with disaster fund. We just got that back, and we were gonna put that into the emergency management.
Yeah, either that or we could pull it out.
So we could say, I mean, these are for emergency signs, right?
True.
So we could pay out of the emergency fund, pay for the signs that way.
I agree with you. What were you gonna say, John?
So a couple of things, because of what has gone on so far this year. Depending on where we end up going with any of this road-related thing, regardless of that, what included with that, we should do probably a mid-year budget amendment. Call it the June meeting, what have you, but we had 5,000 in the emergency management line item. And so far, we haven't spent any out of that. We have overspent on a few other areas, tree damage, blah, blah, blah. So we're gonna have to realign where our expenditures are to a point, and then manage from that point moving forward. So whether we wanna call some of the additional tree work that we did in January out of the emergency management, because it's kind of the same vein, whether it falls over in the summertime or in the wintertime, it's still kind of the same thing. But to your point, I think having local signage is a good idea, one way or the other. And at the same point, I think we need to get questions answered one way or the other, revisit the whole public works account or accounts before we do anything too big one way or the other on it.
Right, so let's just wait and see what he charges for the putting them down and picking them up. Let's see what that costs. You know, if that's $400 or $500, that's one sign. Let's get another one, like I said, I can throw it. Right. Enough on that. Well, here we go. Adjourn, okay. It should be number 8. Adjourn to closed session pursuant to chapter 19.851E. Deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. And 19.85 paragraph 1 sub F, considering financial, medical, social, or personal histories or disciplinary data of specified or specific persons, preliminary consideration of specific personnel problems, or the investigation of charges against specific persons, except where paragraph B applies, which, if discussed in public, would be likely to have a substantial adverse effect upon the reputation of any person referred to in such histories or data, or involved in such problems or investigation. You're further notified that at the end of the closed session, the town board of Palmyra may convene an open session pursuant to state statute 19.85, paragraph 2, for possible additional discussion and action concerning any matter discussed in closed sessions. Items to be discussed: A, that's A, B, negotiations with potential insurance providers, review of quotes received to date, discussion on personal issues with the village of Palmyra, the fire, EMS staff, and its impact on the town.
Motion to go into closed session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?